Welcome to On the Art Trail with Joanne. I'm here today with Erla Boyer. Erla is the owner of 3 galleries in Canada, 2 in Ontario and 1 in Vancouver. So here we are, Erla, in your personal space, which is absolutely exquisite. We're in Stratford, Ontario. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here amongst so many of your beautiful personal things in your space. You started Gallery Indigena in 1970, the Inukshuk in 2008 on Granville Island in Vancouver, and the Indigena Gallery in Toronto in 2017. So you are a butterfly because you're hard to track down, lady. You just got home from Vancouver yesterday, and here you are on the move again. But your gallery includes Inuit and Iroquois sculpture, Indigenous prints, West Coast masks, and many, many beautiful artifacts, all highlighted from Canada. And in fact, this is one of the largest galleries of this type in Canada, specializing in many, many types of special crafts across the country. So the pandemic has not slowed you down.
No,
And what the heck motivates you to keep going at the pace that you do?
I just love the art. I love Native art, and I love many, many Native people that I know personally as friends. And I often say to people, it's like Christmas every day here, unpacking new selections that I've chosen. And so life just keeps going on.
Fantastic and good for you. It's incredible. And you have been in business for 51 years,
Yes.
Erla, which is remarkable. So you've gotten over time to know the language and the legends of many, many people from the North. And you started your business in a rather curious way, I must say. So you started your business with your husband in 1970. How did all that come about?
So it was in Waterloo, Ontario that we first started the Inukshuk Gallery, Norm and I. And I graduated from Wilfrid Laurier, a general BA in sociology department, in psych, I guess it was Soc and Psych. And I had a $25 gift certificate from 2 people. I mean, that was a lot of money back in those days, likely. And I wanted to buy a piece of the language in those days was Eskimo and Indian art. So I went to 2 recognized places and I purchased an Eskimo dog team in soapstone and I purchased an Indian on a horse with a travois. It was actually 2 or 3 years later till I really discovered that these were not made by natives. And I just said then, I'm going to get into the business. I was working on my master's degree at that time, and so I did master's degree, started the business with Norm in our house, and life went on.
You started in your home, but of course you ended up setting up a physical gallery in
yes, on
Waterloo.
Yonge Street in Waterloo for years. But when we first started, we were just tiptoeing into the business, and I was showing the Inuit prints on our dining room table, and we had a showing of Dorset prints in our house. Then it was a medium-sized house, but a decent size out in Colonial Acres in Waterloo, and we framed all the Dorset prints.
Wow.
And put them all around the house, the family room, the kitchen, the living room, the bedrooms, everywhere. And we had people in the house, but we really started out as a print dealer because it was easy to show the prints on the table. And then some sculptures, and it was a split-level house, so we take them into the basement to show them some of the Inuit sculpture. But it was only when we moved shortly after it, because you couldn't have a business in that higher-end residential area. So we moved to Yonge Street and started a Inukshuk Gallery there. And that's why we chose the name Inukshuk for out west, to go back to our beginnings.
Beautiful. So how was the artwork received in the 70s in a smaller community like Waterloo?
Honestly, a great response, because Waterloo is a very academic community. So it has Wilfrid Laurier, it has University of Waterloo, soon after Conestoga College. When you think of it, this whole area, London, right through Stratford, Kitchener, Waterloo, so many academic venues. Even University of Waterloo has an outlet here in Stratford, and long distance education now. So it was really prime because it does, I think, attract an academic crowd, although we hope it attracts all levels of society because it's just worth to know about our country's native art.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a lot to learn. But you certainly have put on many miles, figuratively and literally, over the course of your time in this incredible business. Can you talk about the places when we think of a map of Canada? Can you sort of lead us in geographically to the various places where a lot of these major centers are found?
Well, I think it's really worth starting with Jim Houston, who was a white fellow, he wasn't native, and he was a government employee, and he went up to Arctic Quebec. So if we could start visualizing the map of Canada, you've got your Baffin Island at the top eastern part and the big Arctic Quebec below, with Hudson Bay and James Bay to the left of Arctic Quebec. So the people there were dealing with the Hudson Bay Company because that's who was around the bay to buy their furs and then their small carvings. And then the Inuit decided in little groups, like in George River, in Pavungatuk in Quebec, they started their own little co-op, but they didn't call it a co-op then. They started a little group and said, we're going to start to sell our own carvings. Still very difficult when you're up in the Arctic to get an audience and to get a market. The fur trade was declining, so the Bay wasn't as active about buying their furs, and they needed to make a living. Jim Houston is an artist himself. He's deceased now, but beautiful drawings, paintings, very good mind and eye about art. So he collected the carvings when he went to Quebec and sent them to the Guild in Montreal. And it was in 1948, I believe, that they had their first show in Canada. Nobody hardly knew about Inuit carvings, but there was a lineup to buy these carvings. And back in those days, they were probably $25 to $50 or less. And there was a great response to it. Now, these co-ops weren't established yet. So Jim did that. Then he went to Dorset. So Dorset's just Baffin Island. You know, you fly into Iqaluit, then you go west over to Cape Dorset. So there, it's kind of an interesting story about the history of printmaking. Ashwituk was an elderly person then, we'll just say it was in the 50s. And the old Players cigarette package has a sailor on it. I think it was called Players cigarettes. And Ashwituk said, how did they do that? Because it's on every package. And Jim, being an artist, he took a caribou antler, made an incision in it, knife, I don't know how he did it, took the soot from a Kudlik lamp, rubbed it into the antler bone, took a roll-your-own tissue for rolling your cigarettes, and plopped it on the antler and pulled it off, and it made a little print image. And Ashwituk said, we can do that. This little story is outlined in a book by Jim Houston just called Eskimo Prints. So that was the start on that antler bone. They pulled a few prints in 1958 as exploratory, and Jim would say, well, we weren't writing many letters, so we used the government stationery and some of their thinner papers and carbon papers. And then in 1959, they published their first set of prints in Cape Dorset. And so then the history starts that Jim went to the government and said, look, we need to get funds to fund cooperatives all over Canada. So they organized Arctic Cooperatives Limited. So this was the umbrella place. And then all the communities across Canada joined under Arctic co-ops.
It's fascinating, Erla. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back, and we're going to take a closer look at some of the stunning pieces here in Gowrie Indigena in Stratford, and we're going to talk about some intergenerational carvers that Erla has worked with over the years. So we'll be right back. Because we're sitting in your own space, we can't help but notice what's all around us. This in particular is absolutely fabulous. Can you tell us, please, who this is done by?
This is a totem, and it's by Coast Salish artist, Chief Floyd Joseph. He's of the Capilano Reserve. And I like the fact that we are in the East, but we brought West Coast art to the East. I find a lot of the galleries in the West don't bring a lot of East Coast
interesting.
there.
Huh.
But it's a deer totem, and it's beautifully carved out of cedar. And actually on my piano, I just like talking to that little loon statue, and it's so intricately done by Floyd.
And your Kanujawak.
And then over our little screen here, this is Kanujawak Ashavik from Cape Dorset. And I think I mentioned earlier, the print started in 59, and 1960 was the famous Kanujawak print, The Enchanted Owl, that has gone last year at auction for over $200,000.
Oh, gosh.
Now, this is not worth that, but it is by the
Wow.
artist Kanujawak.
Wow.
And she was chosen for a Canadian postage stamp, and she's deceased now, but an outstanding artist.
What kind of bird would that be?
It's an owl.
It's an owl.
Yes.
Wow.
With all the plumages going out.
Wow, fabulous. And this piece on the piano?
Well, again,
Erla?
it's to do with music, so I like to play the piano, and they are throat singers.
They're throat singers.
So it's the mother teaching the daughter, and one has a baby in the Amauti, and it's out of Arctic Quebec. So that's the traditional soapstone. So that's a lot of the color of the stone that they work from in Arctic Quebec. And they do traditional things. They do hunters and throat singers and mother and child. So it's a different theme there.
And you have something very important at your feet. Can you
This
talk
one?
about that piece? Yeah. Hold it up, Erla, so we can get a look at it.
This is by Peter Lucy Sila. So Peter Lucy, we would say, is one of the remaining of the elderly artists along the years that have died. Very important printmakers, Lucy, any number of them. So Peter Lucy, known her since 1973 when we gave the Inuit print collection, presented it framed in the Kitchener Public Library. And Peter Lucy came down. She went to my university class in Laurier. And for our 50th anniversary last year, this was a commissioned print, so it was only Gallery Indigena that had it. And it had such immediate response, and called Sunrise Loon, so uplifting.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a stone cut print and a stencil. So the stone cut is from the stone here where you ink it and pull the paper and print. And then on the top, they cut out a little piece from mylar plastic and stippled with a brush this color and gone on top. So it's called a stone cut stencil print.
Fantastic. And then, of course, you have this beautiful vase over here.
Maxine Noel has been my friend for about 35 years, maybe even 40. And she has the Order of Canada as of 2 years ago. She mainly does paintings, and she's done certainly some limited edition prints and serigraphs. But she just ventured last year into wanting to learn pottery. So they're paintings.
They're beautiful.
So, on pot, so
beautiful.
I had to have one of her works.
And the painting behind you, who's the name of this
It is
artist?
Lee Claremont. Lee is Mohawk. She was born in Woodstock, Ontario, but she does live in Kelowna in the West Coast. She has a master's degree in fine art, so she is schooled. So we do handle paintings from a number of artists. And this horse wants freedom, and it's titled, What Price Freedom? With the fence there, and he's just roaring to go. She loves color, so you can see the abundance of color in her works.
And you mentioned that she has some work on billboards across the country.
Just 2 days ago, it's against racism, and she phoned me to say, Erla, I can't believe it. I knew there was working on this project about big billboards to talk about racism in Canada. She says, I'm going to be in every major city across Canada. So congratulations, Lee.
Awesome. Well, you know, your taste is phenomenal, and over your years of collecting, you have so beautifully honed in on every aspect of Arctic people in Canada. It's really a thrill. So we're going to go downstairs, Erla, and we're going to take a closer look at Gallery Indigena and some of the beautiful pieces that you've hand-selected for the gallery. So we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. I'm here again with Erla Boyer in her beautiful Gallery Indigena in Stratford. So Erla, this is a feast for the eyes in here. You certainly have prints, you have beautiful carvings, you have West Coast masks at the back. But we happen to be standing in front of a pretty spectacular piece. So can you tell us about this, please?
Sure. This piece is by Manassi Akpaliapik. When we first opened this gallery in Stratford, Manassi came and he did a drum dance with a big 4-foot circular drum. This is a vertebra from a whale. And it's so interesting that he's done the male figure here, and I'll turn it around to show you the back side, has a female figure. But what's interesting, if you look sideways, he's done the entire drum dancer here, right down, and descriptions on the wings of the vertebra.
Wow.
So we'll just turn it around, and on the back side is the woman, the female. And she has tattoo marks because that was very traditional in Inuit women in years back to do tattooing. So then when you also look at it from the front, you can see the drum and the stick. And this is a piece of baleen from the whale inside the whale's mouth, trapping his fish and things he wants and not taking in the seaweed that he's not going to eat.
Wow.
So this is a vertebra of whale bone, and it's Manassi.
Is this a marble here?
Yes, this is a piece of marble, which actually is found in the Canadian Arctic. We have a highway of marble that in outside Dorset, Iqaluit, in that whole area.
So let's take a wander, can we? And we're going to take a look at some of the larger soapstone pieces, and then we're going to move on to have you tell us a little bit more about the different types of stone used in soapstone carving.
Right.
Okay? So, Erla, this is a drum dancer?
Yes, it's by Davy Atchialuk, and Davy died. A very animated drum dancer carving.
Oh,
What's
gosh.
beautiful is the caribou skin drum. It's so translucent, and it's put around a piece of wood. And look at the action in him and the musculature
Oh,
of
gosh.
this piece, and the hair flying.
Oh.
So you can just feel the beat of the drum.
Gosh. Now, how long would it take an artist to do something like this? It looks fairly intricate, this piece looks.
I have a comment by native artists. They tell you, it took all my life.
I know, I say that in my business. It takes a lifetime.
My lifetime, all my life.
It's true, but
So they're working with elders. They are clever how to use the stone, and they can carve rather quickly because they know what they're doing. But a piece like this is a lot more sophisticated than a simple piece.
Oh, for
This has
sure.
figures are much harder to carve.
and the musculature
Yeah.
is quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And so this is soapstone, right?
It is.
But there's different colors of soapstone. So can we move over and talk about the different,
We'll look at serpentine carvings.
okay, let's do it.
So these pieces happen to be from Cape Dorset. Both of these islands are one carver, Pulalik Shaw. You can tell the muzzle of the walruses look the same. Noted for his geese, 1 foot, fragile and winged. So you can see the color of green here, but there's variations in the green color, and we call these carvings serpentine. So they say it's soft, or they couldn't get the detail that they get. Soapstone is soft. And serpentinite is another name for it. For soapstone, talc is another name. It's very soft, powdery. So when we had the discussion earlier in your program, we talked about Arctic Quebec having traditional soapstone. That's the black, soft soapstone. The throat singers on the piano were soapstone.
Okay,
And
okay.
it's still soft to get the detail just like serpentine is. I mean, look at the beak and the eyes and the detail on the wings.
Have the tools changed over time? Like, are they using different tools now?
Yes, of course. And there's some reaction that some of them are using a Dremel tool. So I don't like it when I see a face and I see 2 bullet eyes because they've gone zip, zip with a Dremel tool. Before they'd find a nail, a screw, a piece, anything that was left over anywhere. So in coaching, if they don't sell these with the little bullet holes, then they'll stop using them. And there even was a time they were taking the yellow ends of a screwdriver, you know, this screwdriver?
Yeah.
They were inlaying the eyes with this plastic yellow end of a screwdriver.
Oh dear.
You don't see that here, I tell you.
No.
But
no.
anyway, they carve in soapstone, a lot in Arctic Quebec, soapstone, and serpentine.
What's interesting is that you have hand selected every piece here, so you obviously are very now sensitive and attuned to great carvers, right?
You know, attuned to the market, what they're going to buy, and attuned to the better carvers. And we do try to present them as artists and not just, these are all soapstone carvings, we say.
They're artists.
This is Pulalik Shaw, this is Guta Ashuna, that's Davy Atchuluk, Manassi, etc.
What is this piece here? Because it's really fabulous.
They call it, she calls it the journey. So here you have a combination of the whalebone. This stone is a piece of, I can't even tell you exactly what it is. It almost looks like a volcanic rock. So again, because Guta and her husband Bob Cousy live south, her dad is the famous Kiawakashun of Cape Dorset, who died. So because they live south, and they have also worked a year on a major sculpture for the big show that happened just months ago at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. So they would have access to any other kind of stone, but this is whalebone. I love the fact this shows all the mediums that they carve from. This is caribou antler. Caribou antler is allowed into the United States because caribou shed their antlers. Whalebone is not. Used to be that we could get a sighting, an archaeological certificate. We can do it minimally with a lot of work, getting dating of the whalebone. We're not killing present-day whale. This bone comes from the Thule, spelled Thule, the Thule culture period. When you fly overhead, you can look down and see the remains of old Thule sites. Their campfires, and that's where the bone, because they used the whole framework of the whale in what were short people, and that was their summer homes with skins put over the top. That's where this whalebone has come from. The other thing here is some of these faces. are muskox horn. So this is a muskox horn face. This is a caribou antler face. Also, this is contemporary piece. They've used copper for the paddles. So it's an amazing piece called The Journey, and here's the moon taking them along their path.
Spectacular.
So this piece explores contemporary from the older and traditional art, like the throat singers and hunters and fishermen and mother-child, to incorporating all these different mediums, including like a steel post here. I'm sure this looks like volcanic rock to me. So
well,
we just put together everything.
Speaking of contemporary.
You're right. Who could know that these are the Simpsons? So we have Bart,
Marge,
and
Maggie. Maggie, Homer.
Bart and Lisa.
And Bart and Lisa. And look at the detail on this work,
including the earbuds.
Earbuds, Bart's got his school bag here.
And she's got her little purse.
Wow.
And again, it's hung with caribou skin.
Awesome.
So yes, the younger generation is going to move forward into skidoos are in carvings.
Interesting.
You would never have seen a skidoo before carved.
But this person's father was a carver.
Kelly Palik Kamirpik
Right.
was his father.
Right. I love this.
Kamirpik, Pitsiolat Kamirpik.
I love this. And here you just see the influence of TV and all the technology now becoming embedded into the work.
And they're creative artists, so they shouldn't be held that you must carve a Inukshuk or you must carve a polar bear.
Right, right. So we're in a different part of the country this time, and actually we are someplace close to home.
Right.
And this is Iroquois work from Six Nations
of the Grand River.
Right. So totally different look, Erla.
Right. It's still soapstone, but they get their soapstone in North and South Carolina, and they spray lacquer. If you took your fingernail, you could carve that. It's so soft.
Really?
Yes. And so then they can spray this, and then they've used some stove polish here to make this. So here we have the younger generation coming up to make amazing pieces. His father is a very well-known carver, Vince Bomberry. This is Cyril Henry. So a little story about that. Well, if his father is Bomberry, why is he Henry? Iroquois are matrilineal. So his mother is Eunice Henry, so he's a Henry. So his dad's a very good carver, Bomberry. So we have the eagle and we have the owl. And they're so clever. When the owls first came in, they sat here, and bit by bit there was always pieces of stone. Now he's perched them on a tree trunk so that his claws stay intact. And we have an example also of what I call more traditional because that's how they carve to the contemporary, which is Roy Henry this would be his nephew. So here we have a contemporary owl versus this owl, and he's inlaid catlinite and soapstone for the eyes.
Awesome. Just awesome.
And then this is a traditional carving with the story of the eagle, protection, the tree of peace, the roots in the four directions. So you've got both things here. You've got different soapstone, traditional and contemporary.
Beautiful. Well, Erla, this has been incredible. We can't kiss, but anyway, it's been a remarkable opportunity to have spent so much time with you, first of all, and to enjoy your graciousness in here. And your knowledge is just outstanding. What you've brought forward to the Canadian community is incredible.
Thank you, and I could end with, they call me their den mother.
Well, I can see why. I can see why. But thank you very much for joining us. This was just an incredible time spent with you this afternoon. So thank you, Erla.
You're welcome.